to the Masters Decoded podcast series. Really appreciate you taking time out, and welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here, Anis. So thank you for the opportunity.
I know a little bit of about your career, but for the benefit of the audience, one thing which is very interesting, and I would like to start with that, from your career in sands now to snow, from Dubai to Vancouver. How did that all start? And, what are you doing currently for the benefit of the audience? That will also will help a little bit for everyone.
Okay, well, put things into context. Sand to snow. One, I was born in Dubai, so I spent a sort of more than half my life living in the Middle East and working in the Middle East. And in terms of context for work, I was in business intelligence. So some people would call that marketing research. And now I am an executive coach. And what took me here to Canada, honestly, after close to 28 years in the corporate world, it was time to do something different. And my son was 12 years old, and it was time to introduce him to Canada and to let him discover his roots, if you will. And my parents live in this city, so I've moved to be closer to them. So a lot of personal values came into play, and also a need to be able to share the power of helping people step up their leadership impact through coaching. So that's what really drove me to come here.
Okay. I know the story about 18th Camel, which is the company you run now as an executive coach. And I'm sure if people have listened to the Bedouin story of the 18th Camel, and I believe you've spoken about it in one of your conversation in another podcast. So I'll not go into it right now, but I'm sure if people are interested, what is this 18th Camel? It's a fantastic analytical story. It takes twice or thrice to actually get your head over it to really understand the 18th camel calculation. So it's a fun story, but a great name for the company you run, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really a reflection of when you get to read the story. And I would encourage the listeners to get curious, because that's what the fundamental piece in life is all about. Stay curious, get curious, and be a playful child. Go online, check out what the 18th Camel story is. Because the philosophy behind it is there's always a solution, even when it's not obvious in the moment. And coaching, which I do right now, is all about helping my clients find those solutions and to get beyond their assumptions, get beyond their self-limiting beliefs, and help them identify their blind spots that open up a whole new window on how to see life and how to drive up their leadership impact.
Let's dial back a little bit. You said you were born in Dubai and Middle East. And you started your career, or you built your career in business intelligence, or as you said, also known as market research. How did that career start? Was it something after the college you decided that you want to do this? Was it an accident or something which was programmed or something you planned for?
There's a common theme throughout my life, which I would sum up as relationships trump task. And it's always been through relationships that I've been able to drive my career forward. And I first got my first job in market research is because I was a teacher assistant for 3 different professors for 3 different classes. And one of them, that we all got along very well, but one of them in particular really liked my approach, my view, my philosophy on life, so to speak. And he introduced me to a young new company in Canada that was setting up shop. And that's how I got into market research.
So when you look back now, and I believe the last role which you had was you were the CEO of the region for the company you worked for. Was being a CEO was the final aim, or was that something which you wanted to, or when you being a teaching assistant to being a CEO, that's been an amazing transformation, I would say, in itself. So was that planned, or you said the relationship trumps task? It all came back to it.
So did I have a vision? Okay,
Yes.
that's how I'm interpreting your question.
You are a
The
coach,
answer.
and I'm sure you will be able to decode more of these questions better than me.
So did I have a vision? The answer is no, not to begin with. 21, straight out of university, starting a new job, not too even sure if it's really what I wanted to do. Um, and and then I was married at the time and got divorced. And
Wow.
it's interesting. Yeah, what's interesting about that is whenever these events happen in your life, they force you, or they certainly forced me, to step back and have a look at the bigger picture.
Hmm.
And if there's one lesson I've learned through life is that don't wait for these big events um, to, to step back and reflect. It's what I call sort of refuel, reflect, and then reconnect. Anyway, at the time, I didn't have that wisdom at the time. And because I was divorced, I was then single. And I said to myself, okay, let's look at the bigger picture here. What do you really want to do? And I had to look at my values, and one of my values was adventure.
Okay.
And so I said, right, adventure is going to be outside of Canada. Where can I go? I actually looked at India for jobs, totally naive, not recognizing that the pays were completely different.
Yep.
Though there was an Indian company that offered me a job, market research company, interestingly enough. And, as I got a little bit more savvy, I found a job in Saudi Arabia. And so I moved to Saudi Arabia as an adventure.
And
And
this was in
the
1980s? This was in
oh,
1980s?
yeah, I think, yeah, actually, my memory is a bit, no, this would be 95,
Okay.
1995.
Okay.
So moved to, yeah, that's about right, 95. So I moved to Saudi Arabia, and it was in a leadership role, and that's what I was looking for. So I knew that I wanted to do something in leadership. I didn't know what, it was a bit fuzzy, but I knew at that start that I wanted to be able to inspire other people. And that's how it started. Divorce.
So you divorced the land where you were born to go to Saudi.
Well, yeah. Well, I left the land for a while,
Yes.
but certainly divorced my previous wife. Yeah.
It's just fascinating. Even I have roots back in Middle East because I'm born there, and I've
Hmm.
heard great stories. The land, there was no land, there was sand, and you've seen the region transform. Uh,
Absolutely.
how, meaning definitely at work, you do get to people with different culture, backgrounds, races, and pedigrees, but even the larger social and economical factors also influence the way you take your career and drive your career ahead. So
Hmm.
if you look back from 1995 till the time you were in Middle East, were there any moments or specific areas which really sparked those and which formed your opinions or formed your career or strengthened your career further?
That's an interesting question. So sparks, right, in a multicultural environment.
Yeah.
Okay. I think really the biggest spark was my first boss in Dubai. So I left Saudi, worked there for 3 years, and then moved to Dubai. And my first boss, his name's Stuart. Absolutely fantastic fellow. He's the person who helped me see the bigger picture, if you will, in terms of relationships and the importance of relationships and nurturing those. And pretty well everything else falls into place afterwards. And
Okay.
you know what? And that crosses all cultures and nationalities.
Yep.
And the benefit of living in Dubai is that there are so many nationalities. In fact, in the company in which I worked, we had 28 different nationalities and several different religions as well. That exposure just allowed me to sort of be able to build relationships across cultures. So yeah, that was the spark, really.
Now, when I fast forwarded back here to the current career path which you have taken,
Mm.
and you're doing a lot, also,
Oh yeah.
the little I know. So, being a CEO, where you have a large organization and you were a CEO of a large organization and a global organization,
Mm.
and having teams and people to run for you and work for you and also drive the common objective which you have set for the organization to being a coach, which is almost being on your own. How did that mental transition happen? Was it easy? Yes, it was family driven. You did mention you wanted to give your son uh, get closer to the roots also because your family
Mhm.
is in Vancouver right now. So how did that
Yeah.
transition happen? Did you plan for it, or was it you just took a leap of faith and jumped?
In terms of the coaching piece, definitely it was planned. So it was part of the my career progression. In terms of going from leading a team of full-time team of 500 people across 21 countries to leading a team of one across the globe, I might add, because my business is international. Uh, that transition, honestly, was very, very difficult.
Mhm.
And the difficulty really was on two fronts. One was on speed and getting things done. I was so used to putting together business plans with people and just driving them forward with them, powering with others to deliver and doing it quickly. And then I found myself on my own. So I learned how to slow down and prioritize very quickly. And then the second piece is no one to share successes with, no one to celebrate with. Because at the time my son was 12, I was single at the time, so I was a single dad. My parents are here, so I could celebrate with them, but it's not quite the same. When you get a
Yeah.
business win or a great coaching session. So the celebration piece was that was the lonely piece. At the end
Okay.
of a coaching session, I'd be happy, but no one to share it with.
Hmm.
Right. And that's taken some adjustment. And over the last few years, have built up relationships with other coaches and have developed a new family, if you will, across the world. So able to tap into people on a regular basis.
Great.
And as it happens right now, I've just teamed up with a couple of partners who are based down in Luxembourg, and we have launched, in fact, our coach training institute. So
Congratulations. Yep.
yeah, we're in pilot phase right now with our first cohort. So very exciting times. Life goes on.
Life goes on. You spoke about the word relationship. And when I
Yeah.
look at relationship and rapport, and you did mention now you have an extended family where you have now teams or you're working with individuals who are in global and you're also serving customers who are global.
Hmm.
How does relationship now align to technology or internet, and how, because relationship in the true sense is when you are in physical or in the proximity of people. There's a new
Hmm.
word now where everybody's talking about social distance. You're creating a social distance because of the virus and everything going around, but
Hmm.
you've been doing this for some time now. how
Yeah.
how have you built relationships over the internet and technology?
Um, Surprisingly, very easily.
Okay.
Um, there's certainly for the younger generation. So pretty well anybody who's under 40, not an issue. Right?
Okay.
It's business as usual. This is how we've been brought up, type of thing.
Hmm.
They've really embraced it. Maybe for some people over 40, a bit more difficult. But having said that, over the last 2-3 years, I think pretty well everybody's embraced technology. They get it, and it just makes life so much easier. You can talk anytime you want, from any place that you want. You can have video on or off. Um, the visual contact's hugely important, and on occasion you get to meet some people too and take that relationship to more of a physical level, if you will.
Hmm.
I'm finding it difficult to answer the question, to be honest, because it really works. Yeah.
So let me double click further and make it more difficult. Good relationships qualify when you have trust.
Hmm.
So how do you build trust? Because building trust as a coach is also significant, not important, I would say. So how do you build
So how
trust?
do how do I build trust as a coach, or I suppose, or as an individual?
Yeah,
They go.
it's both, but at the same time using technology as a medium, because
Yes.
trust is also plays a big role in being successful in coaching.
Well, here's an interesting piece for you to consider. I don't know how it works with other coaches. I haven't really talked to them about this. I would say that probably between 20 to 30% of all the coaching I do without video. It's audio only.
Oh,
And yeah, absolutely. And, ask clients up front how they want to do it. And there's a safety piece there. It's amazing how it's easier to speak to, if you will, a stranger
hmm,
about what's happening in your life and what's happening in your business and what needs to happen. And so the trust levels actually can be quite high or higher without video for some people. And the fact that they're speaking to somebody who's really coming to listen to them, because people, it's very rare that, in my experience at least, and I do ask some of my clients, uh, it's very rare for them to actually feel heard for a whole hour.
hmm,
People are so busy doing, running around that to actually have time to talk about yourself and to have somebody who's completely present for them is a gift. And that gift is builds trust. It's a big contributor to that trust piece. So I don't know how well have I answered that question for you. I don't know if
no, I think you made a very interesting point, and I can go ahead and go on the record over here on the call that I've
mm,
been through the coaching session with you, and
okay.
yeah, the point about being heard, or at least somebody giving that ear to you for an hour to let it out. There's so much sometimes you built on.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you're right. It allows you to build trust. Uh,
And there's no judgment.
yeah.
So it really is a very, how should we say, neutral person. And so far, is not here to say it's good or it's bad. We're here to explore. And that's that here to explore, here to share, here to expand and discover. And that is a powerful process for many people.
Yep, I can testify to that.
Okay, well, thank you.
So, so when you think about the career back,
Mm,
and being a successful CEO and then transitioning into coach, you did say that when you were doing the transition, you were a single parent, and your son
yeah.
was young.
Mm,
How did that decision, or how did family or friends influence that or help you through that entire journey, because it's a difficult one, even if I've seen people going through a lot of emotions, and people who are near you really help you out. So did you see
mm.
some of that working for you?
Um, Interesting question. I'm an expat brat,
Okay.
which means I've traveled around the world, packed my bags, and had to leave with a suitcase many times in my life. Um, this was probably one of the bigger ones, insofar as I'd been in Dubai for close to 20 years. So that was a big jump. The people that really make the difference at the end of the day, family. If it wasn't for my mother and father who live here, I certainly wouldn't be as happy
Hmm.
nor as successful as a father and as a business person. They just made a tremendous amount of difference. They had my back,
Good for
right?
you.
And
Yep.
when you've got people in your life that got your back, can't beat that. And then came to a town where people are super friendly and very helpful, easy to make friends, and you rebuild. I rebuilt my network and got
Hmm.
involved in TEDx, for example. So, I'm one of the sort of founders in the TEDx here in my town.
Wow. Okay, next time
Yeah.
I'm there, and if there is a TEDx event, definitely will show
Yeah,
up.
absolutely. Unfortunately, we've had to postpone it until September because of the virus that's now sort of
Yeah.
spreading everywhere.
Actually, somebody who's mastered the internet and usage of technology, this event is a non-event for you in many ways, because you've been doing your business this way over the internet or over video conferencing for some time now. So
Yes.
actually a non-event.
A non-event for it's business as usual in some respects for me because I work from home globally,
Mm-hmm.
and so that works. In fact, I was supposed to be traveling to Europe next week
Mm-hmm.
to deliver the next installment of our coaching program with
Mm-hmm.
our coaching institute, and I'm not traveling, cancelled, and now we're delivering it through Zoom. That's
That's
it.
perfect.
There's always a solution. Absolutely.
Being on your own now,
Hmm.
and literally being on your own, it's not just you're a CEO of another company, but you're CEO of a company of one. If somebody has to replicate that at the career which you were in,
Hmm.
what are the key learnings which you would like to share with people who are thinking about it, which they should recognize and be aware when they want to take this leap of faith and move in this direction? Whether it's a coach or something else, that's their choice.
Absolutely. Great question. Um, here's the biggest learning. In my previous career, I gave 100% to my job. Absolutely full on, full in, completely absorbed into it. And from a health perspective, if you will, mental, physical, the whole bit, that's actually not healthy. And so my job became my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I decided that it was time to move on, because frankly I'd had enough of it in many respects, I recognized that I hadn't invested in myself enough over the years. So yes, I'd done investment, I've been on courses and whatnot, and so to answer your question, my message to anybody is invest in yourself. So if you've got 100 units of energy, take 10 of those and just invest in yourself. Take courses, follow your passions, and really make it a priority in your life, because everybody's going to move on for their jobs, either voluntarily or involuntarily. And you want to be able to have something that you've built up over the years. So 10 units of energy every year over 10 years adds up to a lot.
Wow. Okay.
So having said that, I didn't do that. That was my
Okay.
lesson. It's certainly a lesson I share with my clients. And if I had to do it again, I would have been able to set up my business much, much, much more quickly. Frankly, it took me about a year and a half to really get it going. I could have done it in 6 months had I come more prepared, right? Had I invested in myself more than I had.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a question, but I'll rest it, but I'll twist it
Hmm.
a little bit. But
Okay, let's hear the twist.
yeah. So when, uh, when you look at the last 26, 27 years of your professional career, let's say you were in a career which probably you kind of started to choose, and then you realized that being a coach was your career path. If you have to go back and say, uh, you can do this in the 5 years of your first 5 years and being a coach, would you have done that? Or would you have spent these 26 years and then say, okay, now I want to be a coach?
That's an interesting question. Um, the coaching piece, people tend to whatever drift into it or take a conscious decision to get into coaching typically after they got some work experience.
Hmm.
So I don't think it's something I would got into immediately, just because wisdom is built over time, right? So the learning piece, what's the Zen proverb? There's knowledge is learning something every day, and wisdom is letting go of something every day. I did a lot of the learning piece early in my career. I've done a lot of the wisdom piece in terms of letting go in the latter part of my career. And so if I had to do it again, I'd probably do the same and probably get into the coaching a little bit earlier. Probably when I was maybe 45 or so. Um, that's when
Okay.
I personally would have felt comfortable to do that, just because there was sufficient wisdom and experience. I mean, one of the big pieces with coaching is having that wisdom to be able to bring to the coaching sessions and to clients. And it's very difficult to do that when you're 25 years old.
Because you are also managing a lot of emotions in that conversation with the person opposite. It's not experience, it's that wisdom. When you step in and be part of that emotions, or when you stay on the side and let that emotion pass through, I think that is also for. So just talking about the emotion part, I have seen it when I used to go through the coaching session with you and being coached by you. How do you, meaning at the end of the day, listening to so many folks, there are so many emotions which you would be seeing people going through every day. How do
Yeah.
you de-stress, or how do you kind of take your mind away from it? Because it's difficult.
It is very difficult. And, again, we're talking about wisdom and life's experiences. And I'll share something very personal, is that, my last wife was an alcoholic, and she finally succumbed to alcoholism in the end. And I lived with that for about 8 years before we had to get divorced, because it was unbearable. And that journey of 8 years was hugely painful, and also hugely rewarding insofar as the learning I learned about myself, right? I discovered a lot about who I am. And one thing I discovered too is, in that process, is the concept, and you can look it up online if you want, because it's to do with alcoholics, or addiction, I should say, is detachment with love. Right. So it's caring enough about others. It's really caring enough about other people. It's caring enough about my wife for her she had to learn through her own experience. And at the time, I was trying very, very hard to cure her, so to speak. And one thing that they teach you or that I learned through going to rehab sessions, where you have these circles and you go to the rehab session, is, I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. Right? The alcoholism. Only the alcoholic can, or the addict can. And that was an aha moment for me. So a lot of emotions, tired, dealing with all the stress, and I realized that, in fact, it wasn't me. It's the other person. So, loved her very much, continued to, after divorce as well. And she had to learn from her own experience. And also, by being detached with love, it allowed me to start taking care of myself. And until you take care of yourself, you're of no good to anybody else. And that was the aha moment. I don't know if I've described that well enough to you, or what's landing with you, but that's how I deal with emotions now. I deal with a lot of people who bring a lot of very interesting and very deep things to the coaching sessions. The love is there, and it's their experience, and I also need to take care of myself.
No, I think
So
you
there's a
just made a
detachment piece.
Yeah, you made a very interesting point. You didn't create it. Sorry, that 3-pointer which you got in the
3
rehab.
C's. Yeah, I didn't cause it. I can't control it, and I can't cure it. Only the addict can. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's an
I'm not saying
amazing.
my coach. I suppose you could make the leap that sort of my some of my clients are addicts. That's not the case, right?
Sure. Very interesting. So, when you think about being a coach, do you have a coach, or did you go through a coaching session or a mentor you look up to?
Okay, so a few questions in that question.
Yeah.
Certainly, I had a mentor, which was my former boss or line manager, and he happened to be the owner of the business at the time before he sold it. And in terms of having a coach, yeah, I do have a coach, and we coach. She coaches me about once every 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
Absolutely, it's about keeping balance, keeping perspective.
Okay, so the coaches need a
It's
coach.
about being heard.
Okay.
I think everybody needs a coach. I mean, if you've read Daniel Kahneman's work on System 1, System 2
Yep.
thinking. His book's called Thinking Fast, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Slow.
Basically, I mean, there are many conclusions from it. He won I think a Nobel Prize for economics based on a lot of the work that he did. The point is that we're very, very good at seeing what other people need to change. We're just very bad at seeing what we need to change. And that's where having a coach is hugely important for me, is to be able to bring that perspective in it, for somebody else to be witness to who I am and how I show up, and to be witness to the impact that creates, and then help me discover how to adjust it and step it up on a continual basis. So yes, everybody needs a coach. No escaping it.
So you did briefly touch your mentor, and
Yes.
So you did you did share that the person was actually the person whom you sold the company to. So can you give a little bit about him in terms of his characteristics, and why do you consider him as your mentor?
Yeah, he was a friend before a boss. He was a coach before a boss. So yes, he was the owner of the company. He then sold it and stayed on with the company for many years afterwards. But Stuart was always somebody who had your back, and he was always there for good counsel. Always had the time, and he did it without judgment, and was able to share different perspectives. He would be my example of a boss who took on a coaching leadership style. I never asked him if he did it consciously or not. Hindsight's 2020. But he had that special characteristic of making people feel comfortable to be able to talk about anything, to then move the business forward. Yeah. So relationships. He made you feel part of the relationship, and in fact, the whole business felt like a big family for many, many, many years, and it's what made the difference. It's what made the company at the time quite special. So the importance of having family days, the importance of checking in with people's families and how they're doing, and knowing everybody's names, right? He was exceptional at that. And also, I remember once having a wine tasting. He was big into wines, and many of us didn't know anything about wines. This is Stuart. Yeah, and I remember having a wine tasting session at his house, and he introduced us to many different wines. He introduced us to the concept of tannins and regions and different grapes and so forth. That's what he was about. He was a very giving person.
So this is all in Middle East, wines.
This is all in Middle East. Well, this is Dubai.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. To be clear.
It's been glorious 26 years, if I have to put it for you. And if you have if you have to sum it up, how would you sum it up?
I would, you know what? I would sum it up as a roller coaster ride.
Okay.
Right. Because you hit the highs and you get to see, you're kind of like standing on top of the mountain, so to speak, and you get to see these beautiful views. And then you get to also crash down to the bottom to see the ugliness of business and life. And then you get the twists and the turns, and in every aspect, there's a lot of exhilaration. So it's you get off certainly I did when I've been on roller coasters. You get off and it's been exhilarating. I don't want to do it again.
Okay.
And so if I look back to the last 26 years, despite everything that I went through, and I went through some dark periods, I just want to do it again. Right. And the other piece too in here, which is an interesting metaphor too, is the roller coaster never fell out. Right.
Yep. Okay.
That's the piece, right? So that's what life's about. That's what business life. You go through the twists and the turns and the ups and the downs, and there's always a tomorrow, right? And that's part of the adventure, and that's about staying curious about the adventure and looking forward to the next day and what it has to offer. So that's how I describe it.
I think you decoded the metaphor of roller coaster very succinctly, I would say, for every day. there is the other side, which is fun too. Okay.
Right. And you get off the roller coaster every now and again too. Right.
Right.
And you get to look at it going, okay, that's what
Yep.
it was like. And that's the reflection piece. So, if we want to take that metaphor a little bit further, when we're on the roller coaster, it can seem like, this is crazy, fun, crazy, scary, crazy, everything. So, lots of emotions. You also have the choice to step off that roller coaster whenever you want and have a look at it, and then decide when you want to get back on. And that's the important piece here. You get to decide.
Yeah. So would you get back? Would you get back doing what you were doing before being on your own?
Like today? Oh, I'm on the new
Probably.
roller coaster today.
Okay.
This is a new roller coaster. I mean, there's no point always getting onto the same roller coaster. Right? There's the stand up ones where you can stand up on the roller coaster, the sit down ones, the ones where you're hanging with your feet dangling. There are many different roller coasters that you can choose from. So absolutely, I'm on to the next one. Do I want to go back to do some of the old roller coasters? Well, if I had to do it all over again, yes, I would. I want to stay curious and find out what others are out there.
Sure. So what are you doing? You did speak about the Luxembourg coaching
Yeah.
program which you have started. What are the new
Yes.
roller coasters which you are creating for yourself?
Well, that's a big one.
Okay.
Right. This is about launching a big program to have influence or to help people step up in terms of their leadership going forward. So that's a big one. I think we'll be riding that one for the next 10 years or so.
Okay.
And
Great.
I'll be getting off every now and again to ride the little mini roller coasters of my own coaching practice as well.
Cool. Now, on this note of the roller coaster, Steve, I think this has been amazing. If you feel there are certain things which you would leave the audience with, any thought from your side, which you feel is close to you and near and dear to you, we'd love to give you the mic and say, if there's something which you would like to share.
So thank you for the opportunity to share a thought with you. And when I think back on sort of life in the number of years, there is a quote that stays with me, and it's all about staying curious. It's all about stay curious. From Carl Jung, psychologist, and he says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Stay curious. And for me, it's taking time to step back and see the deeper meaning and purpose in your life, and then deciding how to bring that to bear back into your life. So those would be that's the quote I'd leave you with. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Stay curious.
Wow. On that note, Steve, thanks for taking time out. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation. It's always like the Zen mode. And you, as you said, that hour of listening. So I again kind of got coached today from you.
Well, you coached me. I mean, I felt that you were completely there with me, and you've made this a fantastic journey. So thank you, Anis.